The teacups still held a trace of warmth. The almond cookies I had baked the night before remained untouched on the porcelain tray. 7 o'clock had come, the hour Thomas always stepped through the door. But this evening was different. I kept staring at the front door as if sheer will could make the lock turn, waiting to hear the faint sound of his key. But silence filled the room. The kind of silence that seeps into your bones when something is gone for good. My name is Vivian Carter. For 15 years, I thought I had the kind of marriage others longed for. Thomas was steady, refined, a man whose presence anchored any room he entered. He never raised his voice, never missed a commitment, never forgot to bring me flowers on Sundays. His shirts were always pressed, his shoes polished, his timing flawless. I never had to fret about bills or the house. Children hadn't come into our lives, but it never seemed to matter. We simply fit together, like two puzzle pieces that clicked without effort. Or so I believed. What I didn't know, what I was about to uncover, was that some pieces had been missing all along. And one piece in particular was hidden in a place he had forbidden me from ever entering. Thomas died on a Thursday. They said it was a massive heart attack. I still remember the doctor's calm, practiced expression as he spoke the words, myocardial infarction. I nodded as though I understood, as if any explanation mattered when the person you trusted most had just slipped away forever. The funeral passed in a haze of dark suits, sympathetic faces, and voices reminding me how remarkable my husband had been. I clung to Claire, my best friend since college, who pressed cups of water into my hand I never drank, and plates of food I couldn't swallow. Then my sister Rachel arrived. Her hug lasted too long, her perfume cloying. "I'm so sorry, sis," she murmured, her tone too polished, too smooth. She added, "Thomas was like a brother to me." I wanted to believe her, but something in her gaze told me otherwise. Later that same night, as she poured herself a drink in my kitchen, she leaned against the counter and said, "I know this isn't the time, but Thomas lent me money. I was hoping to settle that now, since you're taken care of." I froze. "What money?" I asked. She blinked innocently, then smiled as though I were being naive. Guess he didn't mention it. My stomach tightened. That night I wandered through our house, fingertips brushing the familiar surfaces as if they could whisper the truth. Our wedding portrait, the polished wood floors, the bookshelf lined with his favorites. That's when I noticed the keys. They sat untouched on the hallway table. One in particular stood out. The key I was never allowed to touch. Its shape was distinct. Years ago I had asked about it, and Thomas had smiled, saying, "It only led to his garage. Nothing interesting, just grease and tools," he said. I never pressed further. That was our marriage, smooth, untroubled, and filled with quiet boundaries I never crossed. But now, with him gone, I had nothing left to lose. The following morning, I drove to the garage. It was tucked away in the old industrial district, hidden among crumbling buildings and cracked asphalt. Not the kind of place you'd imagine a man like Thomas frequenting, but he went there every Thursday without fail. I had never questioned it. The heavy metal door groaned as I turned the key. For a moment, fear paralyzed me. Then I pushed it open, inhaling the scent of oil and dust. Inside wasn't a garage. It was something else entirely. The walls were covered in photographs, maps, newspaper clippings, and notes. Dozens of pictures hung in neat rows, and every single one showed Thomas, but not the Thomas I knew. He was dressed casually, his hair unkempt, his expression softer. In nearly every photo, a young woman appeared beside him. She was beautiful, at least 10 years younger than me, with striking eyes and long dark hair. They looked inseparable, her, hand on his arm, his smile directed at her in a way I hadn't seen in years. In one photo, they stood at the beach, in another at a ski lodge, another sharing dinner by candlelight. I flipped a picture over, and saw the date written on the back. 7 years ago. Another. 3 years ago. One dated just last August froze my blood. That day, I had been at home preparing his favorite meal, waiting for him to return from what he said was a business meeting. Yet here he was, in the photo, sitting beside the woman and a young man in his 30s. The three of them smiled like a family. On the back, written in Thomas's unmistakable handwriting, Isabel and Logan. August 2024. My knees buckled. Isabel. And Logan. The woman and their son. I gripped the desk for balance. That's when I noticed the piles of documents. Bank transfers, shell company records, overseas correspondence. All linked to names I didn't recognize. In one folder lay a medical report, Crescent Heart Institute, dated 2 months earlier. Diagnosis: ischemic heart disease, stage 3, high risk of cardiac arrest. He knew. He knew he was dying. And instead of telling me, instead of preparing me, he had spent his final days with another woman, another life, another child. 15 years I had stood by him. Yet the man I buried was a stranger. A stranger who had kissed my cheek the night before his death, handed me a velvet box containing a sapphire necklace, and told me, "You're the only one for me." As I staggered toward the exit, I heard footsteps. Soft, hesitant. My chest tightened as I turned. In the doorway stood the young man from the photographs. His sharp features mirrored Thomas's, his eyes identical. "Vivian Carter?" he asked quietly. I couldn't breathe. "I thought you might come here," he continued, stepping inside. "I'm Logan Myers. Thomas Carter was my father." And with that, the ground disappeared beneath me. I can't remember what left my lips. First, maybe nothing at all. I just clung to the desk, its cold edge the only thing stopping me from collapsing. Logan's presence was steady, though his expression carried the same caution as his tone. I studied him, not just as a stranger, but as if searching for traces of Thomas. There was no denying it. His eyes carried the same weight, the same silence that said more than words ever could. "You're really his son," I finally whispered. "Yes," Logan replied without hesitation, "and I'm sorry. I never wanted you to discover this way." "How long have you known about me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. "My entire life," he admitted, not apologizing for it. "He told me only that he was married, that you weren't aware of me. He kept our lives separate. My mother Isabel respected that. She never wanted to cause harm, but after she passed away last year, everything shifted." The words hit me like a blow. Isabel gone too, just like Thomas. My legs weakened, and I sank into the chair by the desk. "Why now? Why today?" I asked. Logan reached into his backpack and withdrew a folded document, its edges yellowed with age. "Because of this," he said, extending it to me. "It's a draft of a will. My father gave it to me 2 weeks before he died. He told me the official one would go to you, but this was just in case." I unfolded the paper with trembling hands. Thomas's familiar handwriting filled the page. It wasn't notarized, but the words were unmistakable. Divisions of assets, mentions of Logan, a company name I'd never heard before, Mercury South Holdings. And one note, access to remaining documents secured in office vault, code linked, to personal item gifted to V, the sapphire necklace. The gift he'd placed around my neck just nights before his death. It hadn't been just a gesture. It was a key. My hand rose instinctively to my collarbone, though I had left the necklace in its box. Now it felt heavier than ever. "What is Mercury South Holdings?" I asked, scanning the will again. "One of his private firms," Logan explained. It doesn't appear in public records. He used it to move money overseas. After my mom died, I started looking deeper. I found accounts I'd never opened, transfers in my name. I think he was trying to protect us, you and me both. Why? My throat went dry. Because he knew his time was almost up, Logan said quietly. And because he didn't trust the people he worked with. I looked up sharply. What people? Logan's expression darkened. He never told me names, only that if something happened, someone would come looking, for leverage, for whatever he left behind. The room spun. A hidden safe, a secret firm, a necklace concealing a code, and a man I'd spent 15 years loving who had crafted an entire other world in the shadows. You're saying all of this, it's only the beginning? I asked. Logan nodded. Yes, I believe he left things behind, not just for us, but to protect us. I rose shakily to my feet, my eyes sweeping the room once more. It no longer resembled a shrine. It looked like evidence. And a warning. I need that necklace, I whispered. Can I come with you? Logan asked carefully. I hesitated, then nodded. Because whether I liked it or not, this was no longer just my story. It was ours. I didn't return home, right away. Instead, I went to Claire's. Within minutes, I was curled up on her couch, hands wrapped around a cup of tea I didn't drink. The sapphire necklace lay on the table between us like a live grenade. Claire didn't push me with questions. She never did. Not until I finally poured out everything. The garage, the photos, Logan, the draft will. Her response wasn't anger, wasn't judgment. Just a soft, "I'm so sorry," as she clasped my hand. But sorrow wasn't enough anymore. I needed answers. I needed the truth. Which is why, the next evening, I found myself driving to Rachel's condo. Rachel's building was one of those sleek, modern complexes on the north side of town. Glass walls, coded entry, underground parking. Strange for someone who always claimed to be broke. As the elevator rose, so did my anger. She opened the door, barefoot, silk pajamas clinging perfectly, a glass of wine in her hand as though she had been waiting for someone. Her makeup was flawless, her hair freshly styled. Well, if it isn't my grieving sister, she smirked. Here to inspect. The widow's new fortune? Cut it, Rachel! I snapped, pushing past her into the apartment. That's when I saw it. A framed photograph on her mantel. Rachel and Thomas side by side, champagne flutes raised, laughter frozen in time. The date in the corner made my stomach twist. 5 years ago. What the hell is this? I demanded. Rachel sauntered over, sipping her wine like it was nothing. Oh, that? Company holiday party. You were too tired to go, remember? Thomas insisted I come instead. Her tone was light, casual, as though sharing champagne with my husband was no different than a dinner out with friends. How close were you, Rachel? I pressed, my voice sharp. Her smile faltered. I know about Isabel, I said. I know about Logan, the garage, the hidden company, even the will. So if there's more, tell me now. Rachel's expression hardened. She set her glass down, her hand drifting to her stomach. Her voice dropped. Fine. You want the truth? I'm pregnant. 10 weeks. The room tilted. It's Thomas's, she added without hesitation. I found out just before he died. He promised he'd handle everything. Said he'd leave Isabel soon. You were still seeing him after Isabel's death? My voice cracked. Rachel gave a small shrug, unapologetic. She was never supposed to last. I was always the one who stayed. I felt as if I'd stepped, outside my body, the world muted into a dull hum. You slept with my husband, I whispered. Don't act so shocked, she sneered. You had your perfect little dinners at 7, your spotless home. your picture-perfect life. Meanwhile, I was struggling to survive. Thomas saw me, listened to me. You were his habit. I was his escape. The slap landed before I even realized I'd raised my hand. Her glass shattered on the floor. She didn't cry, didn't yell. She just smiled, her eyes glittering. "There's the real Vivian," she said. "Not the polished wife, but the woman who just discovered her life was a lie." I shook, my hands trembling, my breath uneven. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you never would have believed me," she shot back. "You always thought I was jealous. Maybe I was. But this wasn't about you. This was about me finally getting something for myself." "You didn't just take something," I hissed. "You stole everything." She stepped closer, her tone softer but sharper than a blade. "Say what you want, but the baby I'm carrying is your family whether you like it or not." My throat tightened, but my voice was steady. "I'll honor whatever Thomas left in his will. Not for you, for the child. They didn't ask for this chaos." Rachel blinked, caught off guard. For a moment, her voice softened. "You mean that?" "I don't know what I mean," I admitted. "But I know this. I need to leave." I pushed past her, ignoring the shards of glass crunching beneath my shoes, and left without looking back. That night, I couldn't bring myself to return to my house. Too many ghosts lingered there. Too much silence. I ended up at Claire's again. The sapphire necklace clenched in my fist like a lifeline. She didn't ask. She just opened the door, studied my face, and whispered, "You need rest." But sleep never came. The next morning, Logan picked me up. Claire refused to let me go alone. "You're not opening some secret vault without backup," she said firmly, pulling on her coat. Thomas's office was in a downtown high-rise. He'd always called it a satellite space, a place for private meetings. I had never stepped foot inside, but Logan had a keycard. "I'm listed as co-owner," he explained, scanning us through security. The receptionist barely glanced at us. Of course, Thomas had compartmentalized everything so well, no one questioned it. The elevator ride stretched into eternity. On the 14th floor, Logan led us into a sterile glass-walled office. Cold furniture, gray walls, polished surfaces. Not a single photo of me, not one trace of the life we'd shared. Logan gestured toward a large abstract painting behind the desk. "The safe's there." I pulled the necklace from my bag, twisting the clasp carefully. With a small click, a hidden compartment opened, revealing a thin metal plate engraved with numbers. Logan slid it into the keypad. A low beep. The safe unlocked. Inside lay stacks of documents, a sleek black flash drive, a small wooden box, and a silver key marked Bank Safe Deposit, Federal Trust. We sifted through the files. Contracts, transfers, accounts. "International banks," Logan murmured. "This isn't just hidden money, he was moving it. Fast." I picked up the flash drive but couldn't bring myself to open it. Not yet. Instead, I opened the wooden box. Inside lay a ring, a simple gold band with a tiny diamond. My stomach twisted. It wasn't mine. Inside the band, an inscription. N always, not VN for Isabel. My chest constricted. He hadn't just loved her. He'd promised her forever. Beside me, Claire whispered, "Oh my God." Logan's jaw tightened as he looked away. I couldn't move, couldn't cry, couldn't breathe. Because in that sterile, silent office, the truth finally solidified. He had loved her, truly loved her. And me? I had been the polished surface, the routine, the wife. Logan handed me a letter, my name written across the front in Thomas's familiar hand. My hands shook as I opened it. Vivian, it began. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. I'm sorry. I never had the courage to tell you the truth. I was selfish. I built 2 lives because I couldn't give up either. I loved you in my own way. I wanted to keep you safe, to give you peace. That's why I left you the papers, the access, the truth. Do with them what you will. Burn them. Expose them. It's your choice now. Forgive me if you can. If not, I understand. Thomas. The words blurred as tears filled my eyes. Claire read it silently, Logan too. But no one spoke. There was nothing left to say. We left the office in silence, the kind of silence that comes not from peace, but from devastation, too deep to voice. That night, my phone rang. An unknown number. Vivian Carter. A man's voice said, "Yes? This is Gordon. Blake. I worked with your husband." My stomach sank. "I believe you have something of mine." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. The documents from the safe. They involve transfers I helped set up. We need to meet." "I'm not meeting anyone," I snapped. "You will," he said calmly. "Because the others Thomas worked with, they won't ask. They'll take, and trust me, they're less polite than I am." Then he hung up. I sat frozen in Claire's guest room, heart pounding, realizing the storm was only beginning. The next morning, I told Logan everything. His jaw tightened as he paced the floor. "He reached out to me too," he admitted. "But that's not all. Someone else called last night." He handed me a slip of paper. A name was scribbled across it. Victor Crane. He says he's the original, source of the funds Dad moved. He gave me a deadline. Return everything by the end of the week, or there would be consequences. I didn't need details. The threat was clear. Logan pulled the silver key from his pocket. "We still have the safe deposit box. Whatever's inside might explain this." I hesitated. What if opening it only makes things worse? Claire, ever steady, leaned forward. "Then at least you'll know. Not knowing, that's what's killing you." She was right. The plan was simple. Go to the bank. If that didn't provide answers, find someone who could. Logan mentioned a name his mother had once spoken, Edward Holloway, Thomas's old college friend. Isabel had said he was the only one who ever told Thomas the truth, even when he didn't want to hear it. If anyone had insight, it would be him. But first, the bank. The Federal Trust Building was discreet, nestled between law offices and historic facades, the kind of place you could pass daily without noticing. Claire stayed in the car. "Text me if it gets weird," she said. "And if they won't let you in, cry. Nobody says no to a crying widow at a bank." Logan managed a faint smile. I couldn't. Inside, the manager inspected the key, checked my ID, and raised a brow. "This hasn't been accessed in years," he remarked, "registered under Mercury South Holdings." He led us deep into the basement, past security doors and thick concrete walls, until we stood alone with the box. Hands trembled as I slid the key in. Logan steadied the box as I pulled it out. Inside lay only a manila folder and a single photograph. The photo showed Thomas, Logan, and Gordon Blake standing proudly in front of a black SUV. And in the background, Victor Crane. They weren't just business associates, I whispered. They were partners. Logan opened the folder. Pages spilled out. Shell company registrations, signed agreements, payoffs. At the bottom, one bold label caught my eye. Crane, blackmail insurance. Proof, I murmured. He kept evidence of everything. In that instant, I realized Thomas hadn't just left me a mess. He had left me a weapon. And now it was up to me how to use it. We didn't go home. We went straight to Marcus Doyle, a lawyer I had trusted years ago with my father's estate. He was discreet, practical, allergic to drama. I told him most of the truth, leaving out the affairs, the betrayals, focusing instead on the documents, the threats, the offshore accounts. He listened without flinching. "Do you want to press charges?" "No," I said firmly. "I want insurance." He nodded. "Then we'll make copies, digital and physical, stored in 3 separate places, here, with you, and somewhere unconnected, to you." "I know just the person," Claire said grimly. For hours, we scanned files. Every wire transfer, every false invoice, every international account. It wasn't just shady. It was criminal, global in scope. With Thomas gone, they thought, the trail had vanished. They were wrong. By day's end, Marcus had drafted a letter. At the bottom, I scrawled one line in my own hand. "Try me." VC. We sent it to Gordon Blake's office by courier. 15 minutes later, my phone rang. "You think you're clever?" Gordon hissed. "You're in over your head." "No," I replied, my voice calm. "You are. Because the next call I make is to the IRS, and the one after that is to Interpol." A pause, then laughter. "All right, what do you want?" "Nothing," I said. "No more calls, no more threats, no late-night warnings. Touch me or anyone I love, and the entire file goes public." "You don't want that kind of trouble," he threatened. "I already have it," I shot back. "The difference is, I'm no longer afraid." He hung up. 2 hours later, Victor Crane called. His voice was smooth, polished, a practiced charm. "Vivian," he said warmly, as if we were old acquaintances. "I hear you've stumbled onto some sensitive material. Perhaps we're starting off on the wrong foot." "There is no foot," I replied coldly. "Just your signature on illegal transfers." He chuckled. "All hypothetical, of course." I let the silence stretch, then said quietly, "I have nothing left to lose. That makes me very dangerous." For the first time, his charm cracked. I ended the call. That night, Logan and I sat on Claire's porch, the flash drive still untouched in his pocket, a copy of the folder buried in her garden planter. Paranoid? Maybe. But when the man you trusted most built his life on secrets, paranoia becomes survival. "I didn't think he was capable of this," Logan admitted softly. "Mom always said he was complicated. I thought she meant sad, not corrupt." "He was both," I said. We sat in silence under the cold stars, until I whispered, "We're not finished. There's still the flash drive." 2 days later, I finally opened it. Logan sat beside me, Claire hovering close, tea steaming untouched on the table. A single folder appeared. For Vivian. Inside, one video file, dated just 10 days before Thomas's death. I clicked. Thomas appeared on screen. Not the polished man I knew, but disheveled, tired, eyes haunted. His voice was rough. "Vivian," he began, "if you're seeing this, it means I'm gone. Maybe I ran out of time, maybe worse. I never wanted to hide from you. I wanted to protect you, but I waited too long." He looked straight at the camera. "There's someone you trust more than you should. It's Rachel." The air left my lungs. "She wasn't just a mistake," Thomas continued. "It was planned. The pregnancy wasn't an accident. When I told her I couldn't keep doing this, she threatened me. Said she'd expose the accounts, the transfers, everything I buried to keep you safe." He leaned forward, trembling. "I think she killed Isabel," Claire gasped. Logan's fists clenched. "I can't prove it," Thomas went on. "But the timing was too perfect. Isabel had packed her bags, booked a flight to Lisbon. Then the car crash. No witnesses. The brakes failed, they said. but she'd had them serviced the day before. Rachel knew she was pregnant. Isabel didn't. That's what changed everything. He rubbed his face, broken. I moved money, left backups, gave you access so you'd have power. I was weak, but you're not. If you choose to fight, don't do it alone. The video ended. For a long time, no one spoke. My heart hammered in my chest. Rachel, my own sister. The next day, I invited her to brunch. She smiled at the door, wearing a soft blue dress that framed her growing belly. She hugged me, radiant, as if victory already belonged to her. We sat on Claire's porch. Logan stayed inside. Claire poured tea and left us alone. Rachel folded her hands, smiling sweetly. I was worried you were angry. I'm glad you reached out. Why would I be angry? I asked softly. Because my husband was sleeping with my sister? Or because he left you part of the inheritance? Her smile faltered. Vivian. She began, but I cut her off. He didn't love me, Rachel. He pitied me. But you, he feared you. Her eyes flickered. I placed the flash drive on the table between us. Her lips parted. You can't prove anything, she whispered. You're right, I said. But I don't have to. I rose, towering over her. I'm not going to court. I'm not pressing charges. I won't fight for scraps of justice. I'll simply walk away and leave you here with everything you thought you wanted. The money, the lies, the child. Rachel stood too, her voice sharp. You think that scares me? No, I said. But it will. I turned my back on her and walked inside, where Logan was waiting. That afternoon, I met with Marcus again. I handed him the flash drive, an affidavit, and one instruction. If anything happens to me, release it all. Then I went home. I walked through every room, the chairs, the cracks in the floorboards, the closet we shared. I packed one suitcase, locked the garage door behind me, not to hide the past, but to leave it there. A week later, I boarded a plane to Colorado. A cottage near the mountains waited. Fresh air, a new lease. No safes, no secrets, just me, Vivian Carter, widow, survivor, not the woman who had been deceived, but the woman who turned silence into strength.